Europe's top 24 soccer nations get together this June to compete in the Euro Championships. And WagerTalk's #1 soccer capper, Carmine Bianco, has you covered with a great deal. Carmine is #1 in profits with soccer all-time at WagerTalk since joining us in 2015. And who can forget his World Cup predictions of France 7-1 and Croatia 40-1, eventually meeting in the final. Get every tournament selection, including games, group winners, and prop bets, all in one great package now for only $1.99. This package normally sells for $2.99.
What a wonderful commercial that was, Carm. Wow. #1 profit all time in soccer. We're heading into the Euros. Make sure you guys check out that package and grab Carmine's soccer action. I know he's been on fire and he has been ready and prepping for the Euro Cup. Welcome back here, guys. Welcome back into Puck Time. It is Thursday and I am excited for all kinds of different reasons, as you can tell by the jersey I'm wearing, but this is not a show to talk about teams we're cheering for. This is a show to try and make some money. We have Bryan Leonard joining us here today in his usual Thursday spot. Happy to have Bryan with us. I just want to say a big thank you to everybody out there that purchased my MLB 5% play yesterday. Made it 7 straight 5% winners. I'll have a best bet up again today, and I will have once again an all-access pass up in the NHL for prop sides and totals. I'm going to throw it to my co-host, Carmine Bianco, for what he has up tonight and how his night was last night.
Thanks, Andrew, and congratulations on that 5% winner. You continue to kill it, and thank you for sharing the play with me because it helped pay some bills, which is always great. And a 2-0 night in the NHL last night, 9-2 start to the playoffs. So I'm pretty happy about that. I want to thank you for washing your shirt today. For those of you guys don't know, Andrew walked into our production room about 30 minutes ago wearing a Leaf jersey. I told him to wash it. He stuck it in there. He washed the crap out of it, and now it's a proper jersey. So thank you for doing that for us, Andrew. I'm excited to have Bryan on the show today, as always on Thursdays. We're trying to rotate things up and get some guests in. Bryan's in, and he has a 5% play up in the NHL tonight. I'm going to give you guys a good promo halfway through the show so you can get all of Bryan's NHL plays right through to the Stanley Cup Finals. So, Bryan, how's it going? How are things going? And what do you have going tonight other than that 5% play?
Everything's going well, thank you. And by the way, that was a great commercial. And I do want to point out that Carmine's very modest, and he's been the soccer guy at the site for a long time. And I don't follow soccer, but all I know is he wins. And it doesn't matter what you play as long as the money spends the same, and it does in soccer. So congratulations, Carmine. Yeah, I've got a 5% play and a 4% play in hockey today. Finished the regular season #3 in net profit on the site. Perez beat me out. And in the playoffs, I was 4-1 going into last night. Had Edmonton, lost that game. So now 4-1 in the playoffs, 4-0 to 4-1. And when you have Edmonton and there's only one penalty in the entire game and you don't get to use your power play more than one time, you're probably not going to win. So that's something to keep in consideration with Edmonton the rest of the way. And in fact, a lot of these games, we'll be talking about teams that are doing their regular physical play. Others are avoiding the penalties, and a lot of that has to do with the way the games are played. And if you're betting totals like you guys like to do, that's something you really have to keep in mind.
Absolutely. And, a lot of changes to each game, each team updating some, different systems they're going to run and trying to bounce back after game ones. And I know you've been following your Vegas Golden Knights. They certainly bounced back, but it was definitely a close game. We have had some great playoff games. Happy to have you on here, Bryan. Without further ado, though, guys, let's jump right into these games. Let's jump right into our first game. And Carmen's going to be the Pittsburgh Penguins and the New York Islanders. And, I think every single media outlet or betting show, we all mentioned that it was going to be the Tristan Jarry show. Is he going to bounce back? Was he going to have a great performance in game 2? And he did. He played outstanding. He played well. He made all the big saves he had to. But Islanders here currently -120, Penguins +100. What are your thoughts here in this game here, Carm? Series tied at 1 game apiece.
Yeah, this is a tough series. Listen, tonight's whole slate of of games. The 4 games are tough ones for me to sort of go through. And I think I told you, Andrew, last night, I only have one play up in NHL tonight, where I would normally have a couple, sometimes even 3 plays. It's a tough card, but I look at this one, and you do know, and some of the guys who are my clients know, that we have a series bet on the New York Islanders to win this one as a slate dog. And now they're home. They got the split, winning that first game, and I had Pittsburgh as the 5% play on $2 Tuesdays. That evened out the series. But this is a good one, and I keep thinking the same thing is, during the regular season, I was always on the Islander away unders, and at home I was taking the overs. But I just don't know how I could possibly go to the total here in this game with anything other than, let's say, an underplay, because it's playoff hockey. It's absolutely fantastic what we are seeing on TV right now in these NHL playoffs, and this is going to be another tight one. And you said it. Jari played extremely well in that game. I think Pittsburgh as a whole did a lot better to keep the Islanders at bay, keep those shot attempts and to a minimum. But this Islander team just plays extremely well at home. They've done it all season long. They've been a very good home team. And it's one of those ones where it's not the zigzag that Perez talked about. But at the end of the day, if I had to take a side, and I'm going to give you a selection on the game, it's going to be the Islanders. I still think that while Pittsburgh won that game, that was their first win in, I think it's like 5 or 6 games that the Islanders had beat them in the playoffs straight. And it was only their second win in 11 games in the playoffs. They have a lot of stars on that Pittsburgh side, but the Islanders just seem to have their number. And even in a game in which they lost 2-1, the Islanders put the fear of God into Penguin fans in that third period, and myself included. So with that said, I'm going to take the Islanders here at home in Game 3.
Carmine looking towards the Islanders here, Game 3, and we hate to use that whole zigzag theory, like you said, Carm, but this does have that type of feel. It's going to be quite a bit of a back and forth type of series. We're going to get into some props after in the props segment, but I want to mention, it seemed to me, guys, the difference between Game 1 and 2 for the Penguins is that they were throwing everything they possibly could. We call it the kitchen sink. It was a kitchen sink type of game. They were throwing everything, in the room at the New York Islanders. And as far as the prop markets go, I was betting on Gensel overshots, Crosby overshots, those top guys to get those shots. And I think for the New York Islanders, Brian, it's kind of a battle of depth. I think that if they can get some secondary scoring, that's what'll make them successful. If they're relying on their top players, then I think I'd give the edge to the Pittsburgh Penguins. But where are you looking here, Brian, and how has this series treated you so far?
Yeah, the series has been great. I had the Islanders in Game 1. I had Pittsburgh in Game 2. In this one here, I kind of agree with Carmine. I prefer the Islanders slightly. When you take a look at expected goals per 60, Pittsburgh was very good in that all season long. The end of the season at 24th, though. So the offense really didn't do as well in the second half of the season. And the Islanders got 5-on-5, 2.39 goals a game, which is 60%, or the goals per 60 if they were to play 5-on-5, and that's 7th. And that surprised me. The Islanders, to me, are more of those teams that if they get the lead, I expect them to play the solid defense that they're known for over the years. So I agree with Carmine. I slightly into the Islanders here, but I think the under is probably the way to go here. It's funny that all 4 games today, the total is at 5.5. We get to compare the games a little bit because of that. Obviously the money line's a little bit different on them. But you can pick out of the 4 games and say, well, they're all the same total. Which ones do I think would be the higher scoring and lower scoring? And I expect this to be a lower scoring affair here. Talked about the zigzag. You see that a lot in the NBA playoffs. You see that in hockey playoffs. And it makes a lot of sense. The team that lost the previous game, especially if they played pretty well, they'll come back the next game and play a good game. But for me, slightly in on the Islanders, but I do like the under. I think it's a situation now where the team that takes the lead, since it's been a tight series, obviously 1-1, that team will take the air out of the puck or whatever, but concentrate on defense, and there'll be a few of these games the rest of the playoffs that'll look that way to me.
I'm right there with you as far as the total goes, Brian. I'm looking towards the under as well in this contest. I think that's what helps the success for the New York Islanders, and that's kind of what the Trotz mentality, as Carmine likes to say, the great coach of Barry Trotz, that's what he's going to try and instill into this team. So on the under, and we're looking at a couple different pictures as far as the side plays go, but it's a great series. Looking forward to the game tonight, but I'm on the same page as Brian with the under. Let's get into the game that we've all been waiting for, at least the game I've been waiting for, guys. Come on. Maple Leafs minus 210, Canadiens plus 175. This is going to be a huge series. This is the first time these teams have played in a very, very, very long time. But 17 is the magic number here, guys, for all you Leaf fans. 17 is the magic number. 17 years, the last time the Leafs won a playoff series. That's why it's the magic number. 1967, the last time the Leafs won or beat the Montreal Canadiens in a playoff series. The last time these two teams met, I was barely even, a thought from my parents. So everyone always thinks that, hey, this guy's cheering for the Montreal Canadiens. Must be great to have all these Stanley Cups. Hey, I was barely even, I was barely on this earth when anything like that was going on. So this will be my first time seeing them play the Leafs in the playoffs. I'm excited about it. But look, I got to say this. Guys, this Maple Leafs team, the team that they've built, what they did in the offseason last year, what they did at the trade deadline this year, they have made some right changes, some correct changes that I think that will really help them. And the biggest one is adding toughness. You add Riley Nash, you add Wayne Simmons, you add Nick Foligno. I'm the kind of guy that those moves mean the world to me for this Leafs team versus a few guys up front. Because right now the Leafs, it's never been their skill that's been a really problem in the playoffs. It's been having production in the back half of their lineup, in the bottom part of their lineup, and now they have a fourth liner, like Thornton and Simmons and those guys, and Spezza. So I think if you look at this roster they've built, this is the best addition, to quote a lot of the both media in Toronto and Montreal, of the Toronto Maple Leafs that we've seen in many, many years. In my opinion, the best team that Austin Matthews will have as a Toronto Maple Leaf. The question we have to ask ourselves, guys, is minus 210 a fair price here? Getting into the Montreal Canadiens, they're healthy for the first time in months. They had to deal with a 2-week layoff for COVID. Then they had Price was injured, Gallagher was injured, Deneau was injured. They have some lineup issues. So look, I know everyone's going to say Andrew's wearing his Habs jersey. Andrew's a Habs fan. I think that we've seen quite a bit of trends here, guys. With the first game, the dogs are barking, and I think that this team is well rested. The game plan will be there. And I look at that third line. I look at Corey Perry. I look at Eric Stahl. I look at Josh Anderson. 3 guys that I think will play better in the playoffs. I think if there's lots of guys you can list on the Canadiens that will play better in the playoffs. One thing I think it'll be, though, very hard for the Canadiens to keep this series low scoring. If they can do that, they have a chance at being successful. Carm, I want to go back to you, and I want to get your thoughts on the lineups and stuff like that, because everybody's outraged about Caulfield and Kokoniemi not being in there. The only one I really care about is Romanov, because I think that we need a great puck-moving defenseman to get the puck out of the zone. But people are outraged. They think that Caulfield should be in there, but I think he only belongs in the top 6. No point of having him in the bottom 6.
Yeah, no, and I get it. And sometimes, Andrew, it's, especially when someone comes up, and they play the last few games of the season, you sort of become a prisoner of the moment. And that goes across all sports, where someone comes in, has a couple of good games, and listen, he's a talent. He's going to be a future star in the league. It doesn't necessarily mean you throw him out to the wolves right off the bat. I get it. Maybe he does find his way back into this lineup. I think they need to go with what they have right now. I don't have a problem with it. As far as the series goes, I'm going to tell you, and thank God that Brian is here and is probably going to give you some better actionable info on this. Guys in the chat, I feel the exact same way about this game as I talked about yesterday's Winnipeg-Edmonton game, that I just did not have a good feel on game 1. I wanted to watch it, much like the Boston game 1 as well too. I sat it out because I thought the Edmonton Winnipeg series resembled, and I said it yesterday, it resembled the Tampa Bay Columbus series of 2 years back, where one team is supposed to dominate and likely win the series, and it doesn't happen, and especially in game one. I feel the same way here. Toronto is supposed to beat Montreal. Toronto is supposed to win this in no more than 5 games. Is that going to happen? I'm not entirely sure, because these two are heated rivals, and when they meet, it's a completely different dynamic, and they haven't met for a while in the playoffs. So I can't remember the last time they met in the playoffs. Andrew might have mentioned it. They haven't played in Toronto hasn't played in 6+ days. Montreal in 8+ days. You're getting back into game action. Are Montreal a live dog? Quite possibly. We're going to have to see what happens here, whether they can steal game one. As Andrew said, dogs are barking. My money's not going to be on this game tonight. I'm going to be a spectator. I'll tell you right now. If I had to lean on this game, in all honesty, even with this total, I would lean to the under, because the key to Montreal winning this game is to play a tight defensive game, and it finishes with one of those 2-1 games like they beat the Leafs earlier this season in. So that could be the blueprint of beating Toronto in a playoff series. So we'll see what these two teams bring tonight.
Well, you had a great call staying off that Winnipeg-Edmonton game. It was a very weird game. I think both teams had their chances, but the score obviously looks lopsided. So I can't argue what you're doing here in this game, Carm. I want to mention as well, the series during the year was 7-2-1 in favor of the Maple Leafs. And also I want to mention before I throw it to Brian, as far as the goaltending goes, right now we're seeing Price is going to be in the net, but he was pretty much, I think we saw almost equal amount of starts for Allen and Price. It was supposed to be about 60-40, 70-30. We saw 50-50 due to Price injuries. And I thought Allen played outstanding, but they're going to give it to their number one. Obviously, Price, the guy that's played so well in the past in the playoffs. But Brian, I try my best not to sound like too much of a fan, but we're on a show. I'm here every day. I like to have some fun. I always chirp the Leafs on Twitter. It's all in good fun. It's the monkey off your back mentality for this team. But winning the first round isn't really their Stanley Cup right now. I think it's leave the division or bust.
Yeah, I agree. Toronto's got more longer expectations than just this one series. They should be the team coming out of this division. They've been the best team all season long. You mentioned the changes that the Canadiens made. A lot of positive changes. I still don't like the coaching change. I don't think they took away a lot of the offense when they made that coaching change. When you're looking at expected goals per 60, the Maple Leafs are number 4. Canadiens are number 11. Two of the higher scoring teams without penalties on the season. And unlike Carmine's opinion on the under, I kind of like the over here. I think the only thing that would concern me is if it's a situation where both teams come out tight because of the importance of this first game. If Toronto doesn't come out tight, I think we're going to get a higher scoring game here. I like Toronto in the series. I don't like them at the number. I think they're going to win, obviously. But first game's tough, and we've seen this out of a lot of the games where the home team just comes into it and they just don't have the same intensity as the road team does. And the road team going into these series is they just want to split, and they're happy. They get split on the road. They're very happy. But I prefer the over as opposed to a side here. It's too tough to call at this price for me to lay the number with Toronto, and I don't know if I trust the Montreal team at this point. So slightly with the over, but that's all I've got in this one.
All right, good stuff there from Brian. And I want to say real quick, the stats on the year, it's kind of sad to say this about the Canadiens, but they show that if they don't win the first period or at least tie, they have a tough time winning games. So if you're looking at betting the Canadiens, I recommend putting maybe a half bet on the first period and a half bet on the full game, because this team does not really come back. Did it a few times down the stretch, but they've had a real tough time coming back in games. And to add my 2 cents in the total, guys, Brian, we talked yesterday about game planning with in-game betting. I'm not sure if this is a thing that you would do. Prez kind of disagreed with me because he said you have to just kind of go with the flow. But with this game, I kind of expect, even though I agree with what you're saying about kind of like playing conservative out the gate, something tells me that there'll be some nerves and some excitement. I think this game could start really quick really fast, a few quick goals, and then slow down at the end, which usually I say the opposite, but something could tell me we could see a fast start and then things kind of slow down after that, like a 1-1 first period, 2-1 first period, and then maybe like a 4-3 result. So maybe I might look at it at in-game under, something like that, but I think it could have a fast start. But, I'm looking forward to the game. I think there's a pretty good odds there on the Canadiens, but, from an analytical standpoint, I'm looking forward to seeing what all of these lines for the Maple Leafs can do, because each line brings a whole new element, and this is a brand new team. Carmine mentioned the Columbus loss last year, but this is a completely different team than they had last year. So it should be interesting, guys. Looking forward to it. I'm going to throw it to Brian first for our next series. It's going to be our dump or chase segment with the Golden Knights. Look, it's a pick 'em price, but I think you know why I chose it as the dump or chase, because everybody loves and says how talented this Golden Knights team is. But I know that I know, and Carmine knows how well, first of all, this Wild team plays at home, and the troubles that Marc-Andre Fleury has had on the road against the Wild, and the struggles in general that this Knights team has had on the road against the Wild. So I want to get your thoughts, if it's a dump or if it's a chase, if it's a turnaround game, because I think that we saw some positive momentum ensue with the Vegas Golden Knights. Once Marchessault got that goal, the floodgates might start opening up here.
Yeah, I went to both of those first two games, and two great games if you like defense. I mean, if you like playoff hockey, they were terrific games. Not as physical as I thought they were going to be. And I think a lot of that is nobody wants to put the opposition in an advantage by putting one of your players in the penalty box. But interesting differentials between the regular season and the playoffs. These are two of the faster teams in the NHL, and they were trying during the regular season. They were trying to keep up with the speed. It's clear through the first two games that defense has been king between these two. They are looking to slow the pace down a little bit for the Golden Knights. And I know you do a lot of props, Andrew. The Knights changed it up last game. They're a team on the season where they just go down and put up as many shots at goal and hope to get lucky, get a bounce off the goalie and get that cheap goal. And they've been doing that all season long. Well, they did it in game one, and it didn't work at all. They were shooting from too far out, and even the fans in the stands were saying, we got to get closer to the goal. We got to crowd that goal and just try to get some garbage goals because everybody else does. And the Knights, to their credit, did that in the last game. Problem is, they still didn't score a lot of goals. They get 3 in the game. I mean, obviously one of them was with the goalie gone. So it was a low-scoring game, even with what they were trying to do. I admire what they were trying to do. They had to do something. Now we go back to Minnesota, and I expect much of the same. So if you're looking for shots on goal from any of the Knights players, keep in mind they switched it up last game and they had some success. So I think they'll continue to do that, just try to get closer to the goal, not take as many shots. I mean, how many times do we see the Knights being outshot by, I think it was 9 in the first period? The Knights are the team that comes out and really peppers the goalie in the first period. So it's a different game there. For me, from a side perspective, I prefer the Minnesota side because by watching those two games, it was clear to me that those two teams were equal. And if you watch them on the season, head-to-head, they're equal. If you go by what Vegas has done against the weaker opposition, they were terrific against weak opposition all year. But against the better teams, they've been more equal than they have been. So you got to keep that in mind. We look at that in baseball a lot of time when you get to the playoffs, how these teams did, like the Oakland A's right now, are beating up on the bad teams, losing to the good teams. So Minnesota's my side here, but I really like the total, and I'm going to use that for my best bet. So I'll just hold off on that a little bit.
That's a great point that Brian raises there about them throwing more shots on goal. I think we've seen it from a lot of teams. We saw it from Pittsburgh. We saw it from Vegas as well in game 2, throwing much more on the net. And that's why I'm looking at guys like Alex Tuck and the third line players, second line guys even, to get the goals, because it might not be the Mark Stones of the world scoring. It's going to be some of those guys willing to go to the dirty areas. Carm, it's a great game. I'm sure you were sipping your coffee laughing at me for making a pick'em game, our dumper chase segment. But I think I see a lot of people on some different sides here, but I still think it's hard to go against this Knights team.
Yeah, listen, the dumper chase designation actually fits this game because it is such a tight game that you might not want to chase it. You might just want to dump this one. This is the best series by far to watch in the NHL playoffs if you don't have a heart condition. Because if you do, it's absolutely one that is going to drive you insane. But it's such a good game, and I like I'll tell you, I like the under here, and it's not a total that I would normally like in Minnesota Wild games. And I talked about heading into the playoffs. The one fear I had with the Minnesota Wild was, could they turn that style of play in which they win, in which they score, they play a high octane offense. Can they all of a sudden start to play defensive hockey? And they are, and they've done it in the first two games. They allowed, I think, 30 or 40, I think it was 35 plus shots in that first game. In the second game, they kept, while they lost 3-1, they kept Vegas to 28 shots on goal. And we know Vegas is a high shot total team. We normally see Vegas 40 plus shots. They played two great defensive games and could have easily got out of Vegas with a 2-0 series lead. It's tied at 1 now. It's now a 5-game series. Tonight's going to be another tough game, and I don't expect the Wild to revert back to that high octane team. I think they're just going to play another defensive game. We know what Vegas brings as well too, and Fleury's playing absolutely phenomenal in goal as has Talbot. So you got two goalies standing on their heads as well too. This is, for me, it's the under, unless something something happens with power plays or some deflected shots like we saw in that Boston series, where the goal expectancy at the end of the game was much lower than the final result or final numbers were. I'm leaning under here, so that that's where I'm going as far as this game goes. And I like Brian's take on it as well too, and I like his show best bet at the end. You guys will see that. And speaking of Brian, I should have mentioned it a lot earlier. I think I did. He does have a 5% play up in the NHL tonight, along with another play as well too. I think it's a 4% play. Instead of buying those plays separately, guys, if you use coupon code NHL149, you will get $100 off Brian's NHL playoff package. That's every single play he releases right through the Stanley Cup Finals. So you'll get every single play for $149 instead of, say, spending $60 tonight on his two separate packages. So grab that deal. He mentioned at the beginning, he had a phenomenal NHL season, I think finishing second or third. So kudos to him on that.
Coupon code NHL149, guys. Don't just get one play tonight. Get them all from our good friend Bryan Leonard. And I agree with you guys. I mean, Minnesota's defense has been rock solid. I wish more books offered the saves prop, because only a few of them do. Maybe, Brian, you can jump in if you've seen any. I don't know if you bet props, but in this series in particular, I found one on Cam Talbot over saves. And, that was a pretty easy winner with Vegas, absolutely peppering shots. But as the prop world advances, we'll start seeing more and more shots, make them available. But it's going to be a great game, and I think both teams will be playing some great defense. It's just a matter if they can crack these talented goaltenders and get some goals in. But our next game, a little segue here, guys, with the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa leads 2-0. Look, I think it's been huge having both Stammer and Kucherov back. They have been huge for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And, well, for the Florida Panthers, we learned something last game. And I think that on WagerTalk today, they're doing a new segment. What did we learn? I'll tell you what I learned, guys. I learned that this Florida team, they need something out of Huberdeau or Barkov to be successful. There's no doubt in my mind that one of those guys has to do something on that top line or on the power play for them to be successful. I mean, it's a lot of things people just try and go with trends. If you followed the over in game 2, you did not have a good game. I mean, both these teams buckled down defensively. The goaltenders played pretty well. But I think that you look at game 3, talk about a kitchen sink game, Carm. This is where the Florida Panthers have to throw everything they possibly can at the goaltender, at Vasilevsky. Vasilevsky has been great. The defensemen have been great for Tampa, but I expect the most fast-paced first period we can possibly imagine from both these teams. But Florida, they're going to get discouraged if they go down early. It's not going to be easy for them. And there was a lot of trash talking and a lot of questioning as far as this Panthers team goes. So I'm curious what your thoughts here on this game. It's our only real series here where we're seeing one team up 2-0.
Yeah, I talked about it, the winning culture of Florida, or that they are probably a year removed from, or they need another year before they are a serious cup contender. They have a very good team there, but they're catching a Tampa Bay team that got healthy at the right time, that has the experience, having won the cup, and then, as I said, having been eliminated the previous year in the first round. So you're not going to catch this team. You're not going to surprise this team. And now they're home. And Vasilevsky, I've talked about it. He's 18-2 at home this season, and a fantastic goals against average. But you make a good point, Andrew. This is Florida's game. They lose tonight, they are toast. Do I want to take them? No, I'm not going to take them because I'm going to hope that Tampa Bay wins. But I do think we see a concerted effort from them tonight, and we see this game sort of reverts back to game one, where it was a high-scoring game. Game two wasn't. I think they tried to outscore the Lightning in game one, didn't work out. I think they tried to play defense in game two, didn't work out. I think they go back to, for lack of a better word or phrase, balls to the wall NHL hockey tonight. And there's been a lot of goals scored in these games in Tampa Bay between these two this season. 4 games, 6-4, 5-3, 3-2, 5-3. I understand playoff hockey is much different than regular season hockey, but for me, as far as it goes, I think, and it'll be my show best bet at the end, so I'll mention it twice. I'm going with the over in the first period here. You got to lay about $1.25 in this game. I took a first period over in that 3-1 game that they played, and we got the goals in the first period, and then it sort of settled down after that. So I'm going right back to the well on this one. Give me the over in the first period between these two.
Brian, I think what we should do, if you're down, I'll split it with you or something. We could ship Carmine a Tampa Bay Lightning jersey because the Sabres, I don't know. Sabres, I don't know. Carmine might be in a new life with hair, but by the time they're in playoffs, so I don't really know. We might have to just turn him into a Lightning fan because he seems to like them quite a bit. They're a playoff team apparently. They're built for it. He said they're experienced. Well, they are Cup champions, but he's right. I mean, Carm, all jokes aside, I said it the same thing as you going into game two. When you literally compete so much, you play such a great game, it's a high-scoring game, and you fail, and then the next game you lose a low-scoring game, that has to be kind of struggling for you. So, Brian, I'm curious, what have your thoughts been so far on this series and going into tonight?
Yeah, it's been one of those series where Tampa Bay or Florida had the home advantage, the home ice advantage, and yet they were the underdog in the series. And if you watch the first 2 games, it makes a lot of sense. But this is one of the games, and probably the only one, where we know who's going to put forth the better effort. When the teams are down 0-2, and Carmine mentioned it, he goes, if they don't win this game, they're done. One of the things I like to use when you have a team that's in a 7-game series and they take a 3-0 lead, the opposition, their season's for the most part over. And the lines are higher, but you can still lay the money line because that team's not going to win. They're not going to want to travel again. So this is a huge game for Florida here. If you take a look at expected goals per 60, goals for per 60, Florida was 5th and Tampa Bay was 10th. So both teams on 5-on-5 have the ability to score. And when you're looking at the playoffs and nobody wants to commit a penalty because it's so dangerous, the 5-on-5 numbers mean a little bit more to me than they do the power plays and the penalty kills. So I like to play teams that are really good on the 5-on-5 scoring, and that's what we have here. Carmine said he liked the first period over. I like the whole game over. This is the one game on the schedule where I thought there was going to be some pretty good scoring in here, and Florida's the team with the need. And if you take a look at the way the lines move, there has been money coming on Florida. I agree with the line move. I agree with the over, and that's the way I'm looking at this one. Florida and the over.
Florida and the over from Mr. Bryan Leonard. You can find Bryan on Twitter at @BLeonardSports. It's going to be a great game. I expect some goals. Carmine expects goals, and so does Bryan. Let's jump into some props, guys. Playoff props with myself, Andrew McInnis, and we're going to start off with a prop from that Florida Panthers game. We're going to go with Alexander Barkov to score a goal, guys. I could not believe it. I looked at my odds board, and I saw both Huberdeau and Barkov at well over plus 200. Number fell a little bit. Barkov, though, plus 210. He's the leader of this team. He's one of the most talented players in the league, and he is an absolute sniper. He has had at least 4 or 5 shots in both games so far in this series. I mentioned it's a huge game. It's a kitchen sink type of game. And I think that really means they're going to throw everything they can at the net, and Barkov will be successful. The next prop I'm going with, guys, is from the Pittsburgh Penguins. This prop has hit now in back-to-back games. We're going to go with Jake Gensel over 2.5 shots from the Pittsburgh Penguins. He is on the line with Rust and Sidney Crosby. We all know how great of a passer that Sidney Crosby is. He's always looking for his teammates. And even though Gensel hasn't scored yet, he has gotten, like I said, a lot of shots so far in this series. So I'm going right back to the well. And last but certainly not least, I'm not wearing this jersey, guys, for no reason. I'm going to go with Tyler Toffoli over 2.5 shots from the Montreal Canadiens, minus 130. He is pretty much the only guy I'm sure of on the Montreal Canadiens that will have that green light in his head. If he gets the puck on his stick, he will be firing. So Toffoli over shots, Gensel over shots, and Barkov to score a goal, plus 210 for today's prop segment. I'm going to go to Carm first. I'll give you a minute, Carm. Tell us what you have up for grabs again and your power play for today. I don't have a best bet today. I like Carmine's best bet, so I'm going to just ride with him. Those are my props, and I'll send it over to you, Carm.
Wow, you're just hopping on the bandwagon. I love it, Andrew. That's great. One play up in NHL tonight, as you can tell by today's show. I said these games are extremely tight. I think the margins are slim, and we're on such a good NHL run that I don't want to steer you guys wrong. 9-2 in the NHL season, so NHL playoffs so far, including 9 straight winners now after starting off with a couple duds. So we're going to try and keep that win streak going. 1 play up in NHL tonight, 2 plays up in afternoon soccer, with the first one going at 12:30. So it's an early start. And a 5% soccer play on Sunday as the EPL closes off their season and everyone gets ready for the Euros. So if you want to pick up 7 days of all access for me, you can use the promo code FINAL40. Final40, and that'll get you $40 off the 7-day all access package. You'll get all the NHL, any baseball that I put up, and baseball's been pretty good. All soccer plays, and that's all for the next 7 days. So you'll get a ton of action. Show best bet's going to be an easy one. I'm going right back to that Florida one I mentioned. I'm going to take over 1.5 in the first period and hope that they come out. Both teams literally up and down the ice, and we get some goals early in that game. So over 1.5 minus 125 is my show best bet.
Panthers Lightning over 1.5 in the first period. Soccer action and hockey action up for Carmine at his page. And Bryan, best of luck. You have your 5% play going tonight in the NHL. You had a great season with the 5%. What is your show best bet, though, for today?
Yeah, you mentioned the 5%. NHL career, 12-5-1 on our 5%. And we're on a 13-4-1 overall run on our 5% plays. Been a tremendous hockey season. Finished third, as I pointed out earlier, 4-1 in the playoffs right now. We're going to take a look at that local game for me when Vegas plays Minnesota. You guys talked about the Minnesota Wild defense has been getting better as the season goes on. I'm looking at expected goals against on the season. Here are your top 5. And number 1, Colorado. Number 2, Dallas. Number 3, Boston. Number 5, the New York Islanders. Those all make sense. We all know that. Well, number 4, the Minnesota Wild. They're only allowing 2.03 expected goals per 60 minutes, going on 5-on-5. So this is a team that's really played good defense. And you talked about Fleury in the past struggling against Minnesota. At this point, I don't think they've announced who's going to be in there, but based on how Fleury's played the first 2 games, I can assume that he will be in there. And he has struggled in the past at Minnesota, no doubt about it. But the guy is just playing tremendous hockey right now. Out of the 2 goals, and I see this a lot out of the Knights games, they take a lot of shots, but they seem to hit it right at the goalie, and the goalie doesn't have to move. So Talbot really has not played as well as what the numbers show, because they're just hitting him in the chest, and he just got to corral it for the most part. Whereas if you watch Fleury, he's all over the goal, and he's got to make those saves. And plus, when you're as thin as he is, especially when you compare to Lerner in goal, who's a big guy who just takes up a lot of space, you really like Fleury by watching him play. He's very exciting. But I think this is going to be a low-scoring game here, very similar to the other 2. And like I said, since Vegas switched over last game and went more towards the goal, less shots on goal, which means less chances on goal, but more quality chances, I'm looking for this to be another low-scoring game. That'll be my best bet, the under between Minnesota and the Vegas Golden Knights.
All right, guys. On behalf of Carmine Bianco, Bryan Leonard, I am Andrew McInnis. The power plays are on the screen. Best of luck, guys. Enjoy your night, and go Canadiens, go.
Yes, you heard right. Get 90 days of picks for only $6.10 per day. A WagerTalk 90-day all-access pass covering all sports, all client releases, and all 5% best bets are priced at $8.49. But for a limited time, you can save $300 and lock in your favorite WagerTalk handicapper for the next 3 months for only $5.49, coming out to just $6.10 per day. Have an existing all-access pass? No worries. Your 90 days will be added to your current subscription and won't kick in until your current access expires. Act fast, as this offer expires